Meeting of July 20th, 2021 at 6 o'clock at the Carver Redevelopment Authority. We're on kind of a tight time frame tonight, as we do have to appear upstairs at 7 o'clock to the Select Board. First thing, let's go for a quick urban renewal discussion. Everybody should have gotten the proposed, do we have it? The proposed, I sent it to you. The proposed agreement to hire our, yep, it should be at the end.
Yep.
We don't have to decide on this tonight. It's the proposed agreement that Town Council drew up. Yeah, Town Council drew it up, and this is so that we can hire our consultant who's going to walk us through the process. Jim, do you have anything special to add to this, or?
Not pertaining to the agreement, but I have also reached out before to Serpent and never got a response. So I sent another email out today.
It was like a month apart.
Yeah, so we'll see if we get anything shaken there. And then I used to work for Quincy, so I contacted our deputy director in Quincy and say, because they have a whole number of consultants who they have to update the urban renewal plan if they have changes to the project. They have a consultant that helps them with that, and then they have other consultants that, another one that helps with, they have a district improvement financing to help pay for all the public infrastructure. And so there's a consultant that works with them to kind of cost out everything to make sure that the revenues will cover the expenses through the district improvement financing program.
And when I was on the Zoom call with Greg Corbo and Catherine Klein last week, and we kind of mapped out the parameters, and this was an agreement that KP Law drew up for us to use to hire our own consultant. And it was basically the agreement that we'll use by saying we deposit, there's a line there to say they'll deposit X number of dollars into it, it'll never go below X number of dollars. So that's all things we can discuss at our next meeting, I think, give you guys all time to review it.
Okay.
This is one that was set up for us. It mentions Carver, it mentions Route 44, and I just want everybody to have a chance to understand it, look at it, and if you have any questions, we'll bring it back at the next meeting. But that should start us. We don't need to put it out to bid or anything like that, right? We can just...
Yeah, I think with certain types of contracts, you don't need a bid, I don't know. But I can talk about upstairs.
Yeah, I thought that's where, I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Well, this establishes that they're paying for it.
This establishes that they're paying for it. There were some things in there that was related to, kind of like a flow chart when we were talking to Greg, and it was basically either Route 44, and then if it moves over to Hillwood, then we drop another one for whoever's paying for it. So right now it's through Route 44 because they have control of the property, and then if it becomes under Hillwood, then we drop another one with separate money, but then we're having a separate account started. A separate bank account will be drawn up.
When we did all the appraisals and stuff, remember that?
Yeah.
We never went out to bid, we just hired whomever.
Right.
And when I read this, I just thought it was going to be the same way.
I just think we have to find out the process for who we, send inquiries out to and the scope of the work.
Right.
So we might need some people who know that stuff.
There may be a bidding process that goes on. It depends on how much it's going to be, too.
Right.
Right. So
It's all by a certain level. And I did talk to Rick about this, and there is some kind of a process that it needs to go through.
Okay.
But we can deal with that later.
Right. I know the fire department is pretty close to getting theirs done. And that was kind of something we wanted to see done quicker.
Yeah.
The other thing we did was,
Do you know if they bid theirs out?
I don't think so.
So they hired the same consultant that was hired for the North Andover Fire Department. There's another project very similar that Hillwood did in North
Yeah,
Andover.
we're aware of that.
Yeah, so they just hired the same
They
person.
just hired the
Alright,
same
so-
person, so we may be under the.
So that would, you would think we would be under the same?
I'm,
Depending on.
That's not my-
Okay, we are just
Yep,
double check with Elaine.
Yeah,
She
okay.
was- She,
She knows this whole,
these procurement laws can be,
they can cause pain if you don't do it the right way.
We want no pain.
And we don't want that.
The other thing we did a week ago, no, it was only Thursday, wasn't it?
Seems-
Thursday was that Rick wants to institute kind of like, I think we decided on bi-monthly, every other week,
Yeah,
a meeting of the department heads. Craig was there, Jim was there, I was there, Pat was there. The chiefs were there, deputy chiefs, everybody who has something to do with this project, so that we can simply exchange information, exchange where each person is in whatever process. We settled on every other week. It was kind of a startup, but it was good to get a lot of information out, especially with the chief, because his end of it's working like really fast. And I think that we need to stay kind of on top of all the moving parts. We did ask to have the North Carver Water District come in next time if they can. So we have to move around. Is it Kevin's?
Tracy.
Time frame? Yeah. What time he is. And if I can't make it, and if it's a meeting that either you had participated in the previous week, or Paul or Pat or someone else, that may be the time for you to sit in too,
Okay.
as well. Because anyone who, as we break into smaller groups, anyone who has information that should be shared among us. The email chains and threads are getting a little bulky. They are for me anyway.
Well, yeah.
And Rick thought that we needed more of a kind of a flow chart and a hierarchy to be set up, and a clearinghouse. And that way, we met here. There was no coffee, but perhaps we can fix that next time.
you want coffee next time?
It was 8:30 in the morning.
Isn't that a Zoom call?
No, we were in person.
Oh, my God.
We were in person, which I think was good, because that way, we all got to see
And
and
it's,
join everybody.
and it's you as chair?
No, we didn't even elect a chair, did we?
No, I mean, you were there representing.
Oh, I was there representing the
So it's
RDA.
just one person?
No, Pat was there because he had a meeting earlier, right?
Okay.
yeah, well, I
Right.
was kind of at the municipal finance
Yeah.
background type thing.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's, if you have something that you
Contribute.
need to add or want to participate, there's, if there's more than 3 of us,
It's a
we
quorum.
have.
That's a quorum.
So we just need to be aware of that, so if any other time anyone wants to sit in, I'm more than happy to, as long as we get a report somewhere, that's all I'm saying.
Okay.
So will there be an agenda so we know what they're gonna talk about?
Well, Rick just put a sketch of one together,
Yeah.
but maybe, at our next meeting, there might be something specific that needs to be
Okay.
talked about.
All right.
So we kind of went around and kind of gave little updates from any last contacts with Route 44 development, and then kind of.
Where we were on, like, the agreements, the chief was moving pretty quickly.
Who's taking the minutes? Oh, let's not get in trouble. Come on, come on,
It's
come on.
not, it's not a posted meeting, this
Right.
is,
It's a working
it's
committee.
a,
It's a
like
working
a
committee,
staff
department
meeting.
head, staff,
Yeah.
we don't,
Yeah,
we take
You're
notes,
not-
but we
you're
don't
not
take
supposed to
minutes.
take-
we're not voting on anything.
I don't know, but I know the police department everybody was like angry because they had 8:30 in the morning meetings. No taxpayers could ever come. When they asked for the minutes, they really weren't complete. So I don't want to be in that
You're talking
game.
about the Police department, the building committee?
This is when the police department was building.
Okay.
Whoever that Harriman guy,
Yeah.
he had his meetings in the morning, 8:30. Nobody attended, taxpayers wanted, they didn't know about it. And when all this started to come up to a head, all this came out, and people were like angry. Where's the minutes on top of that? There really weren't any, and there should have been.
Right.
So I don't
Well, I
want
don't know
to
what type of meeting it was, if it was,
be, these were just building committee meetings, just like that could be a part
But
of
Joanna,
it.
those were posted meetings, posted public meetings.
Authorized group.
I'm not sure, but they did get in a heap of trouble. Ask Rick about how
This
it should be
is
conducted.
like an administrative,
right, this is
it's
town
like a
department
staff
heads
meeting, kind of.
and
It's like a
Department
department head meeting, yeah.
board chairs,
Yeah.
department
heads. Or
heads.
vice chair.
I just asked Rick because I don't want to get in trouble. I don't want
I think
the
we discussed it briefly and didn't,
Yeah,
Carver
it just-
reporter.
We can bring it
It
up
seems to
again.
me, though,
We can bring it
that
up again.
that's going to make the process more cumbersome.
It is.
Because you're going to meet on behalf of the RDA with all these other people. You'll be the owner of all the information, which you're going to have to impart again to us before you have the next meeting with that group, so we can in turn ask our questions about what you've heard. It just seems to me to be, I'm wondering if we want to make it, I'm wondering if actually if there's a way for us to appear without being RDA members so we can discuss it. Because I'm sure there are things that I would love to know about that meeting, and if I have to wait a week for, after you've met with all these department heads to find out what was said, then any questions I may have or anyone else on the board
That-
may
and I have to
may have
totally
already,
agree, yeah.
those things may have already been taken care of. So I think if we're really in a position to lead this charge, that meeting should happen with all of us, or as many as possible who can attend at that time. So we, because we're against the clock.
Yeah, I know.
And it just seems to me that, if you meet on the 10th of July and then we meet on the 17th with our questions from the 10th, then you go back on the 24th and say, here are the questions that they raised about the meeting of the 10th. And now you're 2 weeks behind without having action on what was discussed on the 10th. And that would continue to be going. Just seems to me that,
I guess since the first meeting was just kind of an in-gathering,
I know, that's the way I look at it.
Yeah.
I think it will delay decisions more than help. If you want the input from all of us. Because I know one of the big things that I would like to be involved in is the communication, getting all this out there. But if I'm not there with all the other department heads to talk about that, and have to wait to see you a week later to find out what they said about it, and then give you my ideas about it, then it's another week after that before they hear what I have to say.
Well, how reasonable is it to say if something comes up there and it comes to something, let's just take, for example, the communication plan, right? As something like that comes up and it sounds like something that either A, needs input from the rest of us, or B, that might be of significant interest to the rest of us, that we say, well then, look, unfortunately, you gotta come here, so we can talk about it here. And those people would have to then, that are involved, I mean, not all of them might be pertinent, like, make it up, the fire chief might not be involved in decision or discussion A, he might say, don't need me, I don't need to be there, but then we could take decisions from that session and have the pertinent conversations here to avoid A, the 8:30 issue, but also B, the issue of all of us not being able to go and run the risk of it becoming an official thing.
Well, why don't you have a Zoom meeting? I mean, Joanna loves Zoom, don't you know that? I mean, it's very difficult for all of us, but he's right, I agree with Savory 100%. If something comes up and, you don't want to be the bearer of good news or bad news.
Yeah,
You want-
I think if we're the group that's kind of ushering this through, especially
responsible,
town meeting, then we've got to be involved every step of the way, somehow.
then I think the best thing to do is to take this concern to rec and see how this affects the makeup of the committee. Like I say, I'm going out of town at dawn tomorrow. and I won't be back till next week. So if somebody, we haven't set a meeting date, right, for the next meeting,
I'll talk to Rick.
but we need someone to bring this particular concern. If it's a full board or more than 3, I don't know if we have to post it, or
Of course, you have to.
if we post it, then it becomes a public hearing meeting?
Well, no, excuse me, I think we can have subcommittee meetings as the RDA, but you can't have 5 of us, I think, if you did that. Otherwise, you're gonna have to post it.
I think
It's
it,
a quorum.
So post it, what's the big deal?
yeah, I don't see a problem in posting it.
Posting it.
Because I think that, because we're in this time crunch, we've got to get everything done in a month and a half, right, for a fall meeting? We've got to have everything ready to go in front of, to be put on the warrant. And
Rick indicated that the town meeting would probably be towards the end of October now.
October?
so we'd still have to have it in the middle of September, and we're in the middle of July, so we have 2 months. But I think that, I can't speak for everybody on the board, but I think we'd all like to know exactly what's happening with everybody, all the other departments, and where their concerns are and where they're leading this, instead of hearing it after the fact, and not being able to either react to it or to have a reaction that would halt or reverse anything that had been done in the interim.
Okay.
Is your opposition to post a Zoom meeting because other people from the public would come in? Is that an opposition?
Well, it's not meant to be a public hearing. It's not meant to be a public hearing.
Or even a public meeting.
It's not even meant to be a public meeting.
Well, it doesn't have to be. If you want a Zoom meeting amongst us here, we can have a Zoom meeting.
No, it can't.
No.
You can't, it's still
No, it
posted.
can't.
You have to post, all right, so you have
You
to
still have
post
to
it.
post, and you have to post the link.
So,
But you can post it as a working meeting.
yeah,
Can you do that?
I'd have to check.
I'd have to check.
I mean, it would still be a public hearing, but the agenda would say working meeting with department heads.
there you go. What's wrong with
That would
that?
be the agenda.
Yeah.
We'll have to run that by the rest of the guys and the people on the committee.
Okay. I just think that,
What other people
We
would
should-
it be?
Well, it was,
It's just like
The police-
sometimes the police, sometimes water, sometimes
well,
fire.
I don't know because we've only had the one meeting.
Okay, and
Right.
how many people were at this one meeting?
Oh, the 3 chiefs, myself, Craig,
The table was full.
yeah.
2 of the select board members
Yeah.
were
The select
there.
board members.
Oh, the select board members,
Is the-
wonderful.
The chair and the vice
Mark
chair.
and,
I'm coming to this meeting too.
let's find out.
Let's find out.
all right, let's,
Can-
we'll have to have a
can
discussion with Rick and
people-
it won't be me.
Can
Seeing how this
people-
is our project, we should be running it.
If I may, the intention of this was to get everyone on the same page, because in the last couple of weeks, the developers and owners have been reaching out to individual departments, telling everyone a different thing. So we were just trying to get on the same page
Whoa,
and try.
whoa. Jim, you're supposed to be in charge. What are you doing?
What am I doing?
I was at that first meeting with Hillwood, and
Well-
George said that he wanted to be controlling, and then you said, if I remember correctly, they would have, well, Sharon said, they also would have to come through you, and you'd arrange to meet with these various departments. I don't
But
think
that,
that's
Joanna,
happening.
Joanna, that doesn't stop the developer
It does if you tell them, stop it.
from calling the chiefs, any of the chiefs or North Carver Water District and getting on their
If I
agenda.
remember correctly, we did
Without ever-
give, or I said, the board gave permission for them to work directly
Yeah.
with the fire department.
Yeah,
They did?
And
I don't
and
remember
then
that.
there were
I don't remember
It
that.
was-
direct meetings with each of the departments, or some of the departments where they met with myself, met with building, just to get a lay of the land in terms of, the regulatory structure, or conservation for their permits, that kind of thing.
Could
When I say
people,
conservation, I mean, Brooke, the conservation agent,
yeah.
right,
so town staff.
could people attend, for, like me, for instance, could I attend this as the chair of conservation and not A member of RDA?
Yeah, honestly, I mean, I can talk to Rick and say, okay.
It's walking the line, but.
Interest of the board, the redevelopment authority board would like to be participants in this meeting with these other folks and I guess figure out the best way to make it happen, to have it
I have a question, Sharon. You said that these people are picking up the phone, arbitrarily talking to different people. How is meeting with Rick and whomever comes gonna help solve that problem? The chief picks up the phone, "Hi, how are you? I'm Hillwood," or whatever. He's talking to him still. He comes to the meeting and he said, "That guy called me up and I talked to him, blah, 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 blah." We haven't solved that problem.
We're trying to have everything flow through Rick.
Right.
So they reached out to me, they called me, and I said, Rick is the intermediary between the assessing office and Route 44
Well,
development.
what happened to George McLaughlin?
44.
That's what I meant.
It's Route 40. When we say Route 44, we generally mean George.
Yes, it was George McLaughlin that's been reaching out to me.
So he reaches out to you and he says such and such a person wants to get a hold of a planning board. What do you do?
He hasn't reached out to me about that, but it's been about trying to schedule a meeting with the Board of Assessors, and we try to have that information flow through Rick. That was the kind of consensus we got at that working group meeting.
So let me ask you this. Hillwood, whomever,
Yep.
wants to have a meeting with the Board of Assessors, right? They call you or they call Rick?
We want them to call Rick, but they have been calling me, and we want to kind of put an end to that.
So you tell them, don't call me, call Rick?
I still answer, but I say it has to flow through Rick. And if they send me an email, I always CC Rick, and even since they started reaching out, I've always sent an email to Sharon to let her know.
Well, I appreciate Rick, but Rick is the town manager. I appreciate him. We have a town planner here. He's supposed to be working for us. He's the executive director. Is he not involved?
I'm involved.
He is, but it would
I'm also
seem like...
involved with planning board matters.
Yeah.
Seemed like the
Which
consensus of the
unfortunately-
working group was, correct me if I'm wrong.
No, I think you're right.
It was to have the top of our organization
Match up with-
Yeah.
be in contact with the top of their organization.
What we'd like to do is kind of cut off the idea that Route 44, who wants to fast track this
We heard
much
that.
quicker.
We heard that by that last guy that spoke at that meeting. He was sitting there, he was ready to go tomorrow.
Exactly, but again, so what this meeting was attempting to do was set up, like I said, kind of an informational flow chart. And that if it takes, Craig having to tell George or someone, a representative, 4 times, it's got to go up to Rick. Eventually they'll learn. But I don't know when someone calls Craig. I don't know when somebody calls, Chief Weston or Chief Dufley. I don't know. If I don't know, then I don't know.
So,
If I
but
don't know, then you guys don't know.
here's my point. George McLaughlin, he still owns everything. Him and whatever, still own all this, okay? Those people should be the ones who are in the middle, focusing back and forth to Hillwood. It should be George, because he sat there when we met Hillwood, I think his name was George, right? The guy that what's the 2 guys? First is George, what's the second one?
Bob.
Bob Delmo, sorry, we're on one. Bob Delmo was sitting at that last meeting when Hillwood was there. And Bob Delmo was very explicit to us. I'd have to watch the tape again, but he was very explicit that he was going to wanted it to flow through him. And then he would disseminate. Why aren't those guys being talked to?
I think like logistically, there's got to
Just-
be... Sorry, go ahead.
If I can just, because I was there and I was part of the conversation too. And in my working days, been involved in some pretty big projects. Not one this big, but some pretty darn big projects for building schools and so forth. There is value in having a defined communication process. And that's basically what this is. And anytime that I was ever involved in one, I always matched it organizationally, one to the other. If they've got their top person involved, we gotta have our top person involved. So that one person can talk to one person, and then it goes back down and back up. And then those two people talk again. One of the worst things that could happen in this or any other project is to have multiple lines of communication.
That's right.
That is just a killer. And that is something that we don't need. And again, as Savory says, we're in a time frame that there's not a lot of flexibility there, or not a lot of, room for anything other than, real solid and valid communication. So the point here is to refine and define the communication process so that it goes up and down through a single person, and those are the people that talk. Whether it's George or whether it's Bob on that side doesn't really make any difference, as long as they're talking to the same person on our side.
Yeah,
And that's the value of this, and I feel strongly about that.
yeah.
I don't disagree with that at all, but where I have the issue is that if you have the top people talking to each other, and then you say it's incumbent upon those two people to report back to the
Yep.
next level, that takes time.
No, you're right there.
And I think that that next level should be not maybe part of the conversation, but within earshot, and
Yeah.
hear it all as it's happening.
And we've got to find a way to address that.
Yeah, yeah.
And I can talk, if you want to talk to Rick tomorrow, or I'll talk to Rick tomorrow, and I will convey those thoughts to him.
Right,
Okay,
yeah, if we had all the time in the world, I wouldn't really care. It's just that we don't.
We don't, and time is crucial.
Yes,
Time is crucial, but it's more crucial for Route 44 in Hillwood
yes,
than it is between them and us. They're the ones that have to get their,
That's right.
they've got deadlines, they've got commitments and everything
Right,
else. And if
that's
they,
right.
they're the ones that have to define it, and they can do it whatever way they want. That's their business. But when they come back to us, and then that's when we define our priorities.
Yes, and I'm sticking with Bob Delhone, because that's the way it went in that meeting.
Either way,
Well, that's the way it went in that meeting.
yeah.
And he said, I want it all to come through me. And that's what he said, and we all agreed. And then Jim was gonna be the next level down. That was when meetings had to be created with these various departments. That was Jim's duty to go and make sure that those meetings were arranged. That's how I understood it.
and
And that's how I think it
in-
should go.
I think in the last month, though, it's not really exploded, but there's been a lot more moving parts added. And it's really difficult to keep track of all of them going at once if they're not, if the information's not being funneled down from one spot.
Unknown caller.
So, excuse me. I wanted to go get the door.
I think my dog is in here.
I'm sorry.
So anyway, to wrap this part up, I hear your concerns. I probably should have reported back to you, but I really didn't think there was a whole lot of substance that came out of that meeting. It was more simply organizational, and the Chief Weston was very adamant that he felt there was some form of, not divide and conquer, those were his words, but moving ahead and playing one, not even playing one committee against another. It was more that they were moving forward in areas and not everybody was being informed.
Yeah.
So one person might be hearing, the assessors might be talking about, the possibility of any kind of tax incentive programs. We need to know what those are. We're not included in that discussion yet. The chief has gone ahead with his consultant. We're not, the RDA is really not part of that discussion because we knew the chief was knew what he was doing, but the police chief has his concerns. We didn't have North Carver Water District, who will be another major player in this situation. They weren't here yet. So it was really just, we've got this big thing in the middle of the room, how are we gonna figure it out? So that's what it was, and we'll see about the whole committee participating.
So, Pat, do you want to try to meet tomorrow with Rick together?
I mean, we haven't set up a second meeting yet, so.
Let me start just with a call
Okay.
first, and I'll tell him that
All those departments
And then
work for the town.
Yeah, but we
you
don't.
have to meet with him.
That's why, we're different.
I know.
So they could communicate back with
Okay.
Rick. You know, he's a cog, here's Bob Delholm, and behind here is all Hillwood. And Hillwood is connecting with this guy and says, hey, we gotta have such and such or whatever. And so Rick, who takes care of the whole town and all these people he's gotta be involved with. So Bob goes, hey, Rick, we need to talk the yada, yada, yada. Can we set something up? And Rick goes, yeah, I'll set it up. Sorry, Jim, I'll set it up. And so now we have some kind of communication. Now, we're RDA, we gotta know on a regular basis.
And that's what-
in between somewhere here, okay? Either we talk only with Rick, okay? We let everything here happen on its own, and we just talk with Rick. And then Rick comes to a regular, everyday, weekly meeting or whatever, and he interacts with us and gives us a brief of what's going on. And I agree with Saber, you don't wanna wait. If something happens and
No.
he says something and you go, oh, wait a minute, you can't, we wanna, get that out.
We need to refine it.
We need to
And that's what we
refine the
have to-
process.
That's what we have to work
We
on.
need to refine the information. So much of the information is coming either by phone calls that we're not privy
We
to,
don't want that.
or emails that
No.
sometimes, well, the email, I mean,
Look
that's
at you,
the way,
it was like
I know,
this.
I know. But that's the way the communication is. So we'll get it all. I think Route 44 and Hillwood are on a different timetable. We're focused on town meeting. We have deadlines with town meeting.
On behalf of
On
Hillwood,
behalf of,
we're doing it for them.
Yeah.
We're trying to rush it through for them.
well, we could have rushed it through in April, but.
Right.
But they're on the, kind of like the end game towards, they said P&S at the end of the year, or closing at the first of next year. So I think they're kind of skipping over the other section that we need to concentrate on. And we need to bring it all back into the center. And maybe for our next meeting, we'll get George in.
Okay. And just another thing I want to add on top of this is that, you know, we started the discussion talking about the, getting the consultant for us. He's going to want to be in that meeting, right?
Well, he can. I'm looking forward to having
He's wanting
him
to
or her in
want to
that
hear
meeting.
everything that's going on.
Exactly, and that'll be a big part of it, and that will control a lot of the flow of information. So we
Okay.
need to see where we are.
I just think that we as a board should hear the information as it's being spoken.
Okay. We really need to move on. So I think that's it for that section. Let's go on to Forestry at 7 o'clock. We're scheduled for 7:15 in front of the Board of Selectmen to sign the deed. So if everybody has had a chance to.
So that's all we're gonna do is the deed,
Well,
which is good, that's all I wanna do.
okay.
That's all I wanna do, because the MOU needs to be definitely cleared up.
The question will be whether the select board want the two of them together. I see this as, if the MOU is really a negotiation between the select board and the RDA.
Correct.
We used as a prototype the one that they had signed before on this project. So I assumed that that was what was agreed upon back in August of 2015, because that MOU was signed by the select board sitting at the time. That was the prototype. The attorney at KPL changed it a little bit. We need to make those changes back to more in line of what we've talked about. So I see that as really a negotiation between the select board and one or two members. Joanna, I think you're more than capable of handling this.
Yeah.
If tonight when we go to present it, first off, Mark Townsend, the chairman of the Board of Selectmen, and the vice chair, Jim Hoffman, were given a copy of the two MOUs, the one that they had signed and the first prototype that we have, the first draft, and a copy of the deed. He was given those tail end of last week, I think, and asked to distribute them to his board members so that they would see them ahead of time, so that when they're meeting tonight, they have a very long meeting tonight, when they see that they've already seen it, they don't need to, they've had the opportunity to see it and the opportunity to read it. The history was all laid out in the email to Mark, along with the supporting votes. We had the certified copy of the vote from town meeting of April of 2015 that turned the property from the treasurer tax collector to the board of selectmen. And there was a copy of the vote from August 6th of 2015, turning the board of selectmen, turning it over to the RDA. What we're missing was the deed. And Craig, you were here to clear up any questions we had on the taxes.
Yeah.
So did you want to address that?
How's the taxes?
Yeah, so at the time of foreclosure, what was accrued between the pre-taking and post-taking fees, taxes, and all that, it came out to a total of $37,944.71 as of the date of foreclosure, which was September of 2014. I forget the exact date.
And once it's owned by the town, do taxes continue to accrue?
No, it becomes exempt and there hasn't been any taxes
town-owned.
since it became town-owned.
So that would be the amount of money that the RDA would pay back to the town?
Yeah,
Okay.
if that's how the RDA does it.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's the amount of taxes at the time of
Okay.
the foreclosure.
Can I give you my tax? Can I, I'm
Well, I
sorry.
just had but wouldn't that dollar value be paid, so apparently there's 10% net off the top for the RDA, and then there's some expenses taken out. And then you have the remainder, and isn't that remainder paid to the town?
Oh, yeah,
And wouldn't that also include the value of whatever those taxes are?
it would, but I think
No.
for record keeping, they cut it into
It
separate
has to be a
checks.
separate check.
It'd be a check to the town of Carver for $37,000 and some change.
Right.
It would be 10% of the gross, is that what we're looking at?
Yes.
10% of the gross, which was the previous agreements, would go to the RDA. There will be plenty of money with the sale.
If I can have a chance, I'd like to say something. I'm sorry.
There's no stopping it.
First of all, tonight, as far as the MOU, which is just between the selectmen and the RDA, there's nothing to do with continue to close. However, tonight, if the Board of Selectmen signed off on the quitclaim deed, that could, and we did on the other half of that, that would be able to continue to process and to go to the registry and be recorded. It would not hold up the continued sale for Mr. Williams, because in the P&S, he's already signed that, has he, Jim?
Yeah.
P&S, okay. What scares me is I don't want to have him, he's in a tight frame, isn't he? He wants to get permits and stuff, he wants
End of the year.
to keep going. All right, now, we also have a check that he gave us for $5,000. It's probably sitting in your drawer. Where is it?
Sitting right here in this office.
Okay, so to proceed, now let me continue, that we should go with the closing, KP Law should be notified that we want to continue with the closing of the property. We need to deposit that check into our account to make sure it clears. Because if it doesn't clear, we're screwed. Because that means we got a bad check. So that's one of the things you need to do. So the KP Law and yourself or whomever and Mr. Williams needs to go after, with a quitclaim deed is recorded, which should be, that's when we need to pursue continuing and close the sale. Our discussion with the selectmen with the MOU can be of two parts. First of all, we can go 10% net as the original MOU said, and we can have the town write us a check for all of our expenses, about $4,000 or $5,000 if they want to pay. The other part of that MOU says the purchaser's going to pay pro forma taxes. And that's why I asked you what you wasn't a P&S. You know,
Well, it was
Well,
going
what
to be.
about- okay, so
Let me just talk about that.
what I'm saying
The
is,
former taxes, the attorney explained that that was the taxes, so once he signs the deed, he pays the taxes going forward, for the rest of the year. He's not paying back taxes,
He's not paying back, he's paying whatever the tax bill is for the rest of the year, and I think he wants to close like the end of the year.
okay. I didn't interpret the pro forma taxes
Well,
to be going forward.
Yes, so pro forma, and I just sent out a bill to, so when that cannabis company purchased the church, it went from exempt to taxable. It's prorated by the number of days remaining in the fiscal year based on the sale price, not the assessed value. So if it sells for $500,000 and we only have it valued in my office at $250,000, we tax it for FY22 at the sale price based on the tax rates, which it hasn't been set yet, so it would probably default to last year's tax rate. But it would cover the taxes from the date of it being recorded through June 30th of the end of the fiscal
Of
year,
the fiscal year?
of this fiscal year, yep.
Okay, so the wording pro forma, I must misinterpret that? That's really what that means?
Yep, so pro forma covers this fiscal year, and if you guys wanted the $37,944.71, that would cover what we put into tax foreclosure when the property was foreclosed.
Okay, so the KB law could close. Our argument here is really MOU. So we could continue with the closing of that sale, right, with KB law. Now, when you close a particular piece of property, 150,000, okay, KP Law he would write the check to the attorney, KP Law, right? So the attorney has closing documents, and she would prepare these closing documents. How much the town, we would get the 10%, and we would give her a settlement, okay? Because she needs to give us back our administrative fee for 10% and all the expenses we incurred holding this property, and we've incurred them. So the KP Law, I don't think she realizes that we're entitled to that. That's the way it's always been. So the closing settlement document,
We're not there yet, though.
but you could close it if you.
Well, we're not according to the P&S, he's not gonna close it until he gets a building permit.
Oh, I'm sorry, I must have
Oh, okay, no.
I thought he wanted to close.
By December
By the
31st.
end of the year.
He wanted to sign by June 30th.
That's what I
Yes.
thought, yes.
Right, he wanted it signed by
We
June
have
But
that.
then we moved it because he knew that, he accepted it, so I figured by the end of July or something.
No,
He wanted to have that on.
he's not closing until he gets a building
Okay,
permit.
all right.
So by having the P&S, it basically gave him the right to go in front of planning boards or go in front, he has enough control of the property to be able to discuss with.
Okay.
Right, go get
You
it,
guys?
all this property, yeah.
Yeah.
So at some point, we need to come up with our closing costs.
Exactly.
And there's quite a bit of it. Now,
I-
whether the selectmen want to pay for it entirely and stick with the 10% net, that's okay, but the town's going to have to come up with
I
that
mean, I
check.
asked Rick, made the argument that some of these legal fees that we've been incurring are really the selectmen's legal fees because we should have been able to ask for the deed and have it given to us.
That's
and
totally different. That's why when I wrote that explain, remember you said to me,
Yeah.
update, and she says, what are all these things? Well, that's how we did it with Katie O'Donnell, because she wrote all the stuff.
Okay.
That's how she did it. Now, I'm right, wrong, or indifferent. We just have to make sure that all the money's coming back to us. We have to make sure that the RDA gets their fair share, and out of that 150,000, $7,940.71 gets paid to the town. And after we deduct our 10% plus all our additional expenses, whatever's left over, we write a check and Sharon goes to the town select board, here you guys go, thank you very much. That's it. I'd like to get this done.
That sounds very easy. So-
Well, it is easy.
Well, and I'm thinking, given the time frame for planning boards and such and what, I don't know if he's even approached you yet.
Probably, I think he's getting his engineering done
Yeah.
now.
I mean, he was gonna check the well and get the engineering done, and then whatever design he was coming up with for the property. But he's not closing until that's done.
Right.
Until
You
he
should
has,
deposit the check to make sure it clears.
well,
Well, I can't
he
deposit
can't,
it.
it's made up to us.
Whoever the treasurer is has to deposit that.
And does it have to
So
be in a
that's-
separate interest-bearing account? Why don't you just hang on to it?
So,
It's just when we decide to close, just deposit it early, that's
well, we
all.
probably want to get the check deposited soon, because I think after so many days,
Yeah, it's gonna go off. It says it's probably not good for so much time.
Okay, well, if we can get back on track here. At 7 o'clock, we're supposed to be in front of the select board, simply to ask them, give them an update. Here are
Not today.
the votes. The deed was misplaced or lost, or never executed. We did have, the MOU we can still do. If they don't feel like they want to pass the deed to 5 people and have them sign it tonight, that's okay, because like I say, he doesn't want to close for a little bit. But they needed to know that I needed to know that we found it, we got it, we have it made, and they need to be up to date on the fact that we need them to sign it. If one or any of the other select board members want to enter in any kind of negotiation on the MOU, we're perfectly amenable to that. I think we'd send our big guns in with Joanna, who has some experience with this. None of the rest of the board members have done one of these. But that's what's gonna happen at 7. So they wanted us up there at 7, we're slated for 7:15. I know you wanted to go, and either myself or Savory will go. I don't want it a quorum because I want to close the meeting, adjourn the meeting in 5 minutes.
so one thing I just want to bring to everyone's attention, there is an invoice from KP Law
I saw that.
we just got, so I don't know if the board votes on paying.
We don't vote on paying.
No, they, okay. But I just want to make aware in case we did vote. Some boards do, some boards don't.
So we have to incur expenses going forward, yeah.
Yeah, if we can, we'll keep a good track of the expenses because it will all be in the settlement sheet, you're right.
Yeah, yes.
It'll all be in the settlement sheet, it just doesn't have to be there tonight.
That's right, that's right, doesn't have to be. Stress.
Okay, so for bills payable, we probably have a bill from Sue Hannon, did we get one from her?
Who?
Sue?
We haven't,
No,
Oh, you know
well, we
what?
just paid,
she would have had
Yeah.
to drop it off.
so we just paid 2 invoices, one for April 6th and one for June 3rd. So there'll be new ones coming in.
There's no one's coming in, and she's
Right.
gonna do tonight's meeting, she was sick, so.
And then we paid, what's the date of this thing? And we paid a June 11th KP Law
Right,
invoice.
so those were the ones that we identified from last time.
Right, so those, I took copies with the check so that whoever takes over as treasurer will have that information.
Eventually.
Yeah, and where are we on that?
They have all the paperwork. Now I just have to wait for the official
Go ahead.
knighting of it or something.
The official what?
There's a blessing.
What is it?
Official knighting, the blessing at Rockland Trust, and they give him a badge.
Okay, then I will continue, and I don't have the purchase report, I just didn't bother doing it, I figured tonight we were gonna square away
Yeah.
where we were
Yeah.
with it, but I'll go and prepare it and send it all out to the people, and we're gonna have a meeting on the 20th, aren't we?
Today is the 20th.
Oh, I'm sorry, aren't we supposed to have one on the 29th?
That was, again, when I gave that list out, those were all proposed dates.
Okay.
And it was, I did not know you people would take them as These are
Yeah,
set
I
in
think
stone. I handed them out and said, look these over, let me know if anybody has any vacations or
All right,
trouble with them.
okay.
So we're still working on, we'll pick a date from here on in.
Okay, all right, so I'll just
So-
send it out to everyone.
So the treasurer's report, we can table. We have the minutes.
What are we paying tonight? Did he say? I didn't get it.
No, we have a bill, it's in your packet.
Yeah.
Oh,
From KP Law.
The KP Law, $900, 900 plus.
Okay.
And we're keeping track of that.
And just a question, Katie Klein, the attorney, wanted a copy of the signed PNS. Is it okay for me to
Yep,
send her a copy of that?
yep, please do. Okay, quickly, in less than a minute, is there anything there anyone needs to bring up?
Oh,
I know that they've reached out to try and do some, they meaning Matt from Hillwood, has reached out trying to do, start talking about public relations, and wasn't that what that was?
Right.
Yeah, communications with the public and kind of start with some ideas. The meeting is possibly later this week. I wasn't available, but I suggested Sabre could handle it if he was available at the time that they picked.
Yeah. The one thing I want to just bring up is that when we spoke to Bob Delholm at the last site visit and mentioned the consultant,
The third, and second,
the second one,
okay,
that seemed foreign to him.
I know.
And I just wondered if there had been any conclusion to the fact that Hillwood and/or Route 44 would be in fact paying for the consultant.
I believe I have it buried deep in an email thread that Hillwood was going to pay for a consultant for us
Okay,
as well.
Okay.
It's deep, I will look.
okay, because Bob said, well, that's something, I'll talk to George about it and find out what
Yeah.
it was, and I thought that.
No,
it
I
was-
think progress had been made since then,
Okay,
since that site visit.
Didn't we hear something from Hillwood that night we had a meeting?
no, it said
That
May.
was before then.
Oh,
Yeah.
That was before.
They
the
said
site
would help pay,
okay.
was their exact word. They would help pay for a consultant,
Oh,
and that's not,
no.
It's not what we're looking for.
they have to pay for a consultant.
Help in full.
Help in full, yes.
That's good.
Okay, did everyone have a chance to look at the minutes? They were long. No, okay, we're gonna table the minutes of June 24th for acceptance to the next
Yeah,
meeting.
okay. April 6th, executive session?
Well, those were the ones that were,
Zoom?
no, those were the ones that were, oh, maybe it was Zoom back,
I think it was a Zoom one,
but
a different secretary.
that Ashley had, a different secretary, no, it wasn't Ashley. One of the prior secretaries had just tagged on, and we had to have them separated out. And then we were looking to have them rewritten, but that portion of the meeting wasn't taped. So the best Sue could do was just clean them up a little bit. And she did do that. And she was ill today. She's going to do our minutes from the tape again tonight, or whenever the tape is ready. If we can glance at our calendars.
Sure.
I get 5 texts. And what day? Not on, for August?
Tuesdays work better for me, but
I'm looking at Tuesday right now. With this room back to being open, we can probably try, how are you on Tuesdays? Do you still have planning board?
Yes. So
When's your next planning board meeting?
we'll have it next Tuesday, the 27th.
Okay,
But you're looking for August?
yeah, August, maybe the 3rd? That's 2 weeks.
August 3rd?
Everything? August 3rd?
now, do you know when your next meeting is with the department head? thing?
No. But we will absolutely get answers to that. And Pat, if you can, whatever you find out in discussions, if you can pass that on to the committee while I'm out.
And we're doing 6 o'clock.
6 o'clock, is that good for everybody? Is that good for you, Paul?
6 is good, yes.
In this floor here, I mean, this room.
I'm gonna book this room again.
Okay.
It just seems to be the easiest, and I've had a little bit of a learning curve on trying to work without a designated administrative assistant. Why?
The select board was wondering if you could come up to their meeting,
Right now.
or in the next 5 minutes.
All in favor of adjournment? I can do that. We can do this. All right, so we've set our next meeting. Does anybody have anything pressing?
No. Motion to adjourn.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay.